Welcome to another episode of Chat Sports Talk. You know, my name's Chad. Take a dive on sports. And welcome to my Week 11 college football update video. That's why I kind of go to a recap of how I did in my previous week. Also come with my updated poll PowerPoint index as well as my eliminator. Once again, I left another school in that eliminator that shouldn't be in there, so rectify that situation. I'm not paying attention. I'm old. I forget. Let's go over some other news as well. But before I dive into all that, if you could go ahead and give me a thumbs up, especially like the content provider. Really please you two guys. Really helps put this channel out. You also subscribe, let you guys review my work, and I love you all for doing that. And I mean, you just subscribe. This costs you a dime. Helps me provide more content value for you. Now, I debate whether or not to kind of go on that. We'll go straight into the news. And I think I'm just going to go straight into news, get this over with, and kind of get the sad part over. Over this weekend, particularly on Sunday night, or Sunday, should I say, there was a shooting on the University of Virginia campus, where a bus of students were returning from an off-campus trip, and 3 current members of the University of Virginia's football team have now lost their lives, and 2 others have been injured. The players identified as wide receivers Laval Davis Jr. and Devon Chandler, and linebacker Deshaun Perry. Of course, the campus went in lockdown as the UVA Police Department as well as local police were actually looking for an individual. 2 other individuals were actually injured in that incident as well. Able to identify the suspected individual as a former football player, Christopher Donnell Jones Jr., who was a running back on the team back in 2018. Excuse me as I mess with my eye. But once the individual was put in custody, the lockdown was lifted, and Davis himself was, like I said, a former player. I don't know, maybe he had disagreement with certain of the players and then went straight for the gun. I don't know. The whole story about this one is still up in the air about the reasons behind this said shooting, and it's just a tragedy that, once again, University of Virginia has another incident where someone lost their life. The 2 individuals that injured, a safe recovery, and hoping for the wounds of the families of those lost find solace and a path to for them to heal mentally. Losing a loved one is never anything that it's easy to cope with. Unfortunately, I don't know their situation per se, but I have lost someone very close to me recently, so I know the struggle is real in terms of finding a path to being mentally sound in that aspect. So my thoughts go out to the family members of those that have lost or those who are suffering right now. Thoughts go out to the parents of the young man who made a terrible decision as they struggle with their reality. There's no easy way to transition into this, so I'll just kind of go into my Week 11 games. And for me, I actually returned back to form. I went 9-3 on these games. I was quite happy with myself. A few of the games I kind of one game I called for an upset, didn't quite happen. Another game I kind of called could have went the other direction. It did, but I called where I was hoping it was going to be. So let's just go ahead, dive into some of these games, and let's go ahead and start off with a one that kind of hurt me a bit. That was Purdue visiting Illinois in a key Big Ten West matchup. Illinois needed to win this game to pretty much solidify their position. They wouldn't have won the division outright, but they will pretty much stake their claim, and it'd be kind of hard to knock them off that pedestal. Purdue, unfortunately, is one of these teams you cannot overlook, and I stated that. They have a decent defense, and O'Connell is just one of those quarterbacks. You cannot give him time, and he will pick you apart. Guess what happened? Purdue's defense showed up, stifled the Illini. Once again, the Illini couldn't perform against a defense with a game plan. They had a hard time against Michigan State last week, hard time against Purdue this week. Next week, they got to take on Michigan. The Illini picked a bad time to kind of struggle, get on that struggle bus, and they're on it. The Illini defense could not really stop anything Purdue was doing. Purdue was able to just match wits with the Illini all day long. O'Connell had over 200 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Mockabee over 100 yards rushing with a touchdown himself, as Purdue outlasted the Illini for the upset win, 31-24. Puts Purdue in the driver's seat right now for that Big Ten West Division title. Is now they got the edge over the Illini, who has the edge over Minnesota, who end up winning their matchup. So that's a 3-way tie. So every game matters. Purdue has probably the easier path to get there. Then we had the Baltimore, where Navy was taking on Notre Dame. And with this one, I said, do not overlook Navy. Every time these two teams go at it, Navy plays them tough regardless of the record. Now, Notre Dame jumped out huge on them. I mean, 35-13.5. That looked like it would be one-sided affair. It made me look like I didn't know what I was talking about. I mean, Pine overall almost had 270 yards with 4 touchdowns. But Navy would not go away. They kept coming. It was a more ships just kept showing up that just dumped off more players. I mean, it was just a constant wave, and they just kept battling. It kept battling. But Notre Dame was able to hold on to beat Navy 35-32 to move to 7-3. Party in the high teens in terms of the college football playoff rankings. Because the committee's going to look at that. Oh, they struggle against a 3-7 Navy. Look, they can't play anyone with a losing record, and they struggle. No, it's just Navy. It's just how they play. Then we had the Battle of Bone between Georgia and Mississippi State. This one is like Rogers is just one of these quarterbacks that does very good for a few games here and there, and then he just doesn't really happen. And unfortunately, he's taking on Georgia. Georgia is one of these teams, and Rogers just wouldn't really perform, and he wasn't much of a factor. Bennett was more of a better aspect. He almost had 290 yards passing with 3 touchdowns, as Georgia was just the bigger bulldog. At the half, it was a little bit closer game, the 17-12 Georgia, but second half it was all Georgia, as they just cruised to a 45-19 victory and just picking off their teams before they head to Atlanta. Then we head over to Austin, where the Longhorns playing host to the Horned Frogs of TCU. This was a game that's meant for the Texas to get back in a hunt of a Big 12 title shot. And on everything else was not pointing well towards TCU, because the higher ranked teams of these matchups, the top 25, they're on the road, tend to lose. I didn't believe that hype. This was either a defensive showdown or offensive struggle, depending on your output on this one. It went down to pretty much the wire with these two. It was only 3-0 at the half. So I wasn't feeling too confident about this game. But TCU just took it up to 10-3, heading into the fourth. Ewers was not much of a factor. He was off once again. You saw him on the phone with his offensive coordinator or quarterback coach, and he had to look like he's been yelled at by his mother. He wasn't crying yet. He was having a very bad day. He couldn't get in sync. He didn't have time. TCU just found a way. They went to Austin and left with a 17-10 victory to clinch their position in the Big 12 title game. That's here between Kansas State or Oklahoma State, basically. And now they just got to continue winning to get their position in that playoff, and maybe they get a little bit extra love by the committee now. Then we head out to Eugene as the 6th-ranked Ducks will play host to 25th-ranked Huskies of Washington in a big matchup in the Pac-12. As Oregon was sitting there on top, being undefeated in conference play. Washington was just kind of hanging out there with their 2 losses, but they had a slim chance of making the title game, and a win here in Eugene would help. This is the one I thought Bo Nix and the Ducks would just run away with it. But Penix Jr. and the Huskies had other ideas. Penix had over 400 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Irving for the Ducks had over 140 yards rushing with no touchdowns. And it was just a slugfest with these two. I mean, they went back and forth. 13-10 by Washington at the half. The third quarter, that's when the Ducks really kind of took charge and ended up going up 31-27 heading into the fourth quarter. But it was just the Ducks were trying to drive, and they ended up stopping them. Had to get Washington the ball back. They marched down the field, kicked a winning field goal to escape Eugene with a 37-34 victory. Really just turned around that whole Pac-12 because that's what they do. They like to beat each other up. But, yeah, that's going to be kind of hard-pressed to find out who's going to be on the team in that conference because there's another interesting game that happened as well. Then we head out to Arkansas for the Battle of the Golden Boot between LSU and Arkansas. And I thought Arkansas would make a game of this, but I thought LSU would be way too much. Arkansas made more of a game than I thought they would. LSU could not dominate. Arkansas was looking away to stop their losing streak. I mean, they got embarrassed by Liberty at home. They had to try to rectify the situation. They couldn't. It was just enough where LSU's defense was too much for Arkansas. It wasn't a whole lot of cracks that the Arkansas defense gave up either, as LSU hangs on and beats Arkansas 13-10, clinching the SEC West and their date with Georgia. I don't know, can you see LSU a 2-loss playoff team? Who knows? And the reason why I say LSU clinched it because the next game, Alabama took on Ole Miss. Now, Ole Miss needed to win this game to stay within the hunt. LSU had the tiebreaker over them because they already beat them already. But they're hoping that they could probably go, maybe beat Alabama. But having Alabama lose 3 in a row, it's like a snowball chance in hell. I mean, they gave it a shot, though. I mean, they were battling Alabama, and they were actually leading them at the half, 17-14. It was just things are just not quite where they should be with the Tide. They don't have the talent level this year they've had in years past. Or maybe the talent level is starting to spread out a bit in the SEC, and they're like, wait a minute, we can start beating Alabama. Maybe we have a shot. I mean, Ole Miss was putting up the numbers. Dart had over 200 yards passing. Judkins had over 130 yards rushing. Health, had over 120 yards receiving. I mean, Ole Miss had to put up all the stats. But Alabama had one better. They ended up escaping Ole Miss with a 30-24 victory. Thus guarantee LSU's position. And we'll just kind of see what happens with Alabama and Ole Miss at the end. But, yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. Then out there at Winston-Salem, as Wake Forest played host to North Carolina, you had Hartman and May going at it. These are 2 great quarterbacks that should be probably won't get drafted high in the upcoming drafts when they actually come out. But they should, be halfway decent quarterbacks in the next level. And May, I think, is just one of these quarterbacks you definitely have to look at, as he's just starting his college career basically. So, well, it definitely was a game that went back and forth between the two. And I mean, 27 to 21 at a half by North Carolina. You know, I went with Wake because I thought Wake could have the opportunity to maybe knock off someone that's ranked. North Carolina pretty much already guaranteed their position in Charlotte, and they were battling back. I mean, Wake Forest came back in that third quarter, really made a game of it, up 34-33. But it was a fourth quarter that was dominated by the Tar Heels defense. They had enough of an offensive drive to get a field goal, escape Winston-Salem, 36-34. Continue their march to Charlotte with their date with Clemson to find out who's going to win the ACC. And imagine if both these schools end up going to Charlotte 11-1. How are you going to leave the ACC champion not in playoff conversations? But I don't know, but I think, and both of them actually lost to Notre Dame, by the way. Let's just kind of throw that one out there. That's a weird one. Then we went over to New Orleans, where you had an American showdown between Tulane and UCF. Both of them are ranked in the college football playoff in the top 25. UCF had a huge win against Cincinnati previously, and I called for the Knights to win this one. They did not disappoint, even though there was a late charge by the Green Wave in the fourth quarter. Pratt was tried his best to do what he had to do. I mean, he had over 230 yards passing with 3 touchdowns. Plumlee was doing more for UCF, especially on the ground, when he had over 170 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. As UCF was able to escape Tulane 38-31, almost punching their ticket into the American Championship game. Got pretty much a 3-way tie, but UCF has a tiebreaker on both Tulane and Cincinnati, who still has to face off at the end of the year. And UCF just needs to win a game, and they're in, and just to find out who they'll have to rematch against. Then we head over to Waco, where the Bears were playing host to K-State. This is the one that I think that people were kind of looking at Baylor kind of winning this one, and I was going K-State in this game, and they went down to Waco and just took it to them. I mean, it was 17-3 at the half, and that was it for Baylor's offense, by the way. 3 points in the second quarter. That's all Baylor had the entire game. K-State was just way too much. They just rolled Baylor 31-3 to pretty much have K-State and Oklahoma State battling to find out who is going to face TCU in the Big 12 championship. Huge matchup, and also another huge matchup in the Big Ten West was Wisconsin taking on Iowa. Now, this is one of these weird ones because both these programs have done well throughout the years, and this one seems to be kind of a down year for both of them because no one saw Illinois coming. And they're not quite living up to their expectations. I think they really kind of expected from the programs. They were expecting to at least have no more than 3 losses, and both of them are already at 4. So it's about to get to 5th. I went with Iowa because they're playing at home. They have, I think, a better defense than Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin's offense is slightly better than Iowa's because Iowa's very inconsistent. Iowa's offense was consistent enough. I mean, 14-10 at the half. They struggled pretty much the rest of the game. Iowa's defense shut out Wisconsin in the second half. They put 10 more points in the fourth. That was it. Iowa beat Wisconsin 24-10. They keep their slim hopes for a Big Ten title, or at least a shot at a Big Ten title, alive. Like I said, Minnesota ended up beating Northwestern to kind of put a 4-way tie right now in the Big Ten West division. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But who knows? I mean, you still got 2 more weeks going, and it should be fun. Yeah, my last game that I picked was the San Diego State matchup down there in San Diego for the Mountain West Division positions. San Diego State needed to win this game to kind of stay within the hunt, even though they're behind Fresno State, who pretty much has a good lead on everyone, so they have tiebreakers. And Maiden was just efficient enough with his passing. I mean, he had 200, almost 270 yards with 3 touchdowns. And was kind of the weird aspect at the end of the game that, I mean, it was just San Jose State just kept battling back. I mean, it was 24 to 14 and a half for the Aztecs. The Aztecs went up and, continued to just dominate. It was like 38 to 20, but San Jose State kept battling back. And it was like a late safety by the Aztecs that ended up sealing the deal as San Diego State beat San Jose State 43 to 27. Kind of put everything in the shoes of Fresno State to kind of take the West, but if they slip up anywhere, we have the other 2 California programs right behind them for a fun, interesting time frame. And another wild one out west as well, one that no one saw coming. Arizona went to the Rose Bowl and beat UCLA. I mean, really? One of those games I think, people are just going to talk about because it's just no way you would have thought that would happen. Chip Kelly should, probably done a little bit better, but earlier in the year he struggled against South Alabama. So maybe, just one of those games that maybe it was inevitable that Delora would have a very a good game coming up, but makes it interesting right now in the Pac-12, especially when Utah, rising, had the Utes rose against Stanford. So the Pac-12 is really out there. But those are my picks. I actually went 9-3, which is really not too bad to say the least. The only ones I lost was, of course, the Illini game. And then I ended up losing the Wake gang, so I picked Wake Forest and Oregon. By then 4C. Washington going in there winning. So now it takes me to the aspect of my Eliminator. First, I kind of throw up my updated bottom as to represent those that already been removed and those that actually dropped down to the bubble. As you see, Alabama and Illinois are now in the bubble. Maryland is not supposed to be there. I've let them in there for some reason, overlooked them. Like I said, I'm old. I do forget things. Here is the top portion. As you see, the 4 undefeated teams above the black line. Everyone below that has 1 loss. So we'll see how things kind of play out from here. Now, if you look at, of course, the bubble teams, of course, Maryland, like I said, shouldn't have been there in the first place, so they're gone. The Illini losing to Purdue. Nixes any possibility whatsoever. NC State ended up losing to Boston College, so they're eliminated. Tulane get their second loss in for the group of 5, losing to UCF. Liberty lost to UConn, so made UConn bowl eligible, so they're happy. But that's their second loss for a group of 5 program, so they're eliminated, which leaves Coastal Carolina as the only 1-loss group of 5 school. I don't see them making the playoffs either because they lost to Old Dominion. But then you look at what's left right there for the, LSU has a path. Alabama, I don't think does. Neither does Penn State. Utah and Washington, I think, are also have a slim path. And then we look at the top end of this. All the undefeated stay undefeated. And then you'll see Ole Miss losing to Alabama. Pretty much, I think, eliminates Ole Miss altogether. Both UCLA and Oregon losing in conference showdowns, but they still have a possibility of getting there. So it still leaves 4 programs with 1 loss. 2 of them will face off with each other regardless. You saw the showdown between Michigan and Ohio State later on. So things are interesting. I may look at this and maybe try to put this on one slide now. I may not, because I think, I don't know, I may start just eliminating programs now that are on the bubble. And it's like, nah, your guys' path is shot. But you never know. I mean, it comes down to who's going to maintain. Well, that was my updated eliminator. Now it's time to throw up my updated point index poll. Like I said, this is all based on points. My scale equation I use will be posted in the description below. It does favor it more for the group of 5 programs than it does anyone else. I do tend to hamper the SEC schools a little bit more. It just seems how things kind of go. But let's go ahead and dive into this one. As you see, the previous rankings are now accurate in the previous one, so where they were ranked prior to this one. So making their debut, the top 25, UTSA. They're the front runners right now in the Conference USA. They're there at 8-2. Right ahead of them is Oklahoma State. You see them have the possibility of making it to the Big 12 championship game. NC State's ahead of them. I got Troy moving up 2 spots to 22. K-State returns to the top 25 with their huge win in Baylor. And Notre Dame continues just to kind of move up. Moved up 3 spots at number 20. UCF continues to climb. They're now at number 19. Florida State is now in here. I mean, they did beat LSU, so I guess they get a little bit more support there, 7-3. Coastal Carolina moved up 1 with their victory. Ole Miss lands down to 16 after losing to Alabama. Washington moves up to number 15. Oregon is right ahead of them, so I understand where some people are like, wait a minute, why is Washington not ahead of Oregon? They beat them. Just how the points kind of translated. And then there's UCLA at number 13 after their surprising loss to Arizona. Now here goes the top 12. Utah comes in at number 12, moving up from 14. Penn State jumps them to number 11. LSU continues their climb. Now they're in the top 10. Alabama's ahead of them. Even though LSU beat Alabama, I understand that. Don't worry, next week when Alabama plays Austin Peay, you'll see them drop down because they play an FCS school late. And that's another thing, this poll will kind of hamper you for playing FCS schools, and especially if you play them late. That'll really drop you down. North Carolina now at number 8. As you see, my top 7 doesn't really change. Just a couple teams flip-flopped again. UNC stays at 7, Tennessee at 6, Clemson still at 5. Michigan now at 4, TCU 3. The previous week they were flipped, and that flipped from the previous week, and that's what they'll do. It'll look like they'll do a little dance throughout the final ends of this poll. Georgia still 2, and Ohio State 1 by 0.002. So I think Ohio State and Michigan will probably get a huge boost with their strength of victory once they play their game at the end of the year. But there you go. There's my top 25. I know it's not very different from the AP and the coaches poll. That's just the nature of the game when it comes to that. I think by the time this one comes out, this is when the college football playoff poll will come out, so there'll be a lot of controversy with that one. But there you go. There's my recap of what happened, my update eliminator, my top 25. The sad news coming out of Charlottesville. Just a tragedy all around. Like I said, I wish those affected by that tragedy all the best wishes to heal all visible and mental wounds and try to move forward as best as possible in a healthy way. But hey, let me know down below which game shocked you the most. Who you think is your top 4? Who at the end of it all will be in there? I think it will be Georgia. I think it will be TCU. We'll go Ohio State over Michigan. And I would probably take a Big 12 or Pac-12 school over Tennessee, especially if they only have one loss. I mean, if it's USC, I think it should be USC, or it could be the winner Clemson, North Carolina. I think they should be ahead over Tennessee. It's because they win a conference. But that's just me. That's why I think we still need that expanded playoff pretty soon. I think that next week I might actually showcase what that will look like with the current format, or I might do it in a different day. But hey, let me know down below what you think of all those games. While you're there, you hit that thumbs up once again. You go share the video with your friend and family. It really helps promote this out. Once you subscribe, make sure you hit that bell to let you know next time I post any more content on my channel. And I will see you next time on Chat Sports Talk.